music. When you mean style, you mean playing style or the style of music the band plays, specific person in a, how do you what a style?
That
Sunglasses
no,
to that.
it's yeah, it's musical styles, artistic styles.
Explain a few.
But the common ones that everyone would know of, let's say, would be like the samba, the bhangra, right? Thumri, for example, you know, the tango, um, uh, rock and roll, right? The blues, um, swing,
Shuffle.
the shuffle, yeah, and then you've got the swung shuffle and the
Straight
16, you know, and yeah, and the 16 beat shuffle or the straight shuffle. So these are styles, right? And they're defined either um, by the form of the song,
The structure
right?
of it.
The structure of it, or the chord progression, or so on and so forth, or the rhythm, right? So they're defined by the elements contained therein, you know, not by the perception without, which is what the genres are defined by. So, yeah, actually, I think that's an easy way to sum it up, in the sense that genres are more defined by how the outsider perceives it, but the style is more about what, you know.
Swing will be a swing to everybody who hears it. It's a swing, right? Pop is different to every generation. Yeah.
So again, the example you gave, some styles are genres themselves too. Blues is a style of playing music and it's a genre of playing music as well. That can be defined fairly well even as a genre then. No.
Well, uh, if you get into the, I mean, simplistically, white man blues and black man blues, and then there's Delta blues, and there's Chicago blues, and there's, you know, New
New
Orleans and
Orleans
all that
blues.
stuff.
But in this case then there are different genres, but the style of playing you would say that it goes back to
Yeah,
blues.
yeah, 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 yeah.
But I would say I have heard blues artists as a genre who don't play the blues form. So then, if you're saying that the blues is defined by the blues, is that really blues? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, again, blues is just a genre now, because of something they're doing, some wailing they're doing, or something or the other. Right. But when you're talking about the blues, you're talking about just that pattern that happens.
A fairly interesting statement I read once, and I have no idea where I read it, but it was about System of a Down, which was back then something very different. Every metal band was playing something very similar, and they came out and played very different music with very similar sounds. I read that System of a Down was a band of who was operating in metal genres, but introducing Armenian style to it. And we had I read this after the conversation we had the last time, and it stuck with me for a while that okay, the X genre plus Y style. Does that happen often?
I don't
And does
know
that
about.
how is that how new genres born out or stuff?
It could be. I mean, you know, this whole thing is evolving so frequently, right? Of late, I mean, actually, not of late. Uh, System of a Down, and you know, the Incubus bands like Korn, and all these guys. They're not new bands now. You know, these guys have been around for a fairly long time by any standards, right? And there's been um, after the big hype of America's marketing takeover of the world, right? And I'm talking about National Geographic, I'm talking about Life magazine, Time magazine, around that time when they owned big media across the world, and before it had sort of peppered itself in small locations. Um, Basically, the entertainment world belonged to America and the UK, right? Even the Beatles had to go to America to get famous because that's where the big market was. Right? But after that whole thing finished off, you know,
You think it's finished off?
it sort of finished off.
It is sort of because nowadays marketing people are saying Australia is where it's happening. Yeah.
You know, yeah, but what started happening was that there were a lot of the musicians, artists, people, migrants, as much as Donald Trump hates it, flowing into America, music and, you know, influences flowing into America that would come from Europe. um, they'd be, you know, because they weren't brown, I gotta say this, and they weren't, you know, they weren't Oriental, right? It wasn't easy to, sort of distance yourself from them. America has a little place where it keeps the black community and it keeps them very much in that place. So, as progressive as America is, the black community is not allowed out of that space, right? It's very difficult to keep a white guitar player out of a white band because you don't know where he's from until he opens his mouth, right? And this problem was driven home to me when I went and was talking to someone in a pub in UK and this guy was just complaining about white people. He says the problem is that these guys come across from from Armenia, Ukraine. Some of these, they look like us, they work for one third the pay, man, and they're taking our jobs. So we guys are now, we don't know what to do, right? So that turned into a big issue, but at the same time it's
It's turned into
influenced
Brexit.
well, it's turned into Brexit, yeah. But it's also, I mean, culturally, it's turned into what? It's also turned into this situation where it's, people have brought in, um, music and a lot of other good things as well from one culture into the other.
Last thing I would like to put out was, uh, much like biology, maybe, I don't know, but like, since there is a lot more interaction between musicians now, there are a lot, is it that there are a lot of more styles growing out, a lot more genres, because of just a lot of people listening to it and trying to recreate it, and they try to end up creating something else altogether.
Sort of, I would say, because I think the internet is to thank for most of this. Because now people are listening to more things than they could listen to. For example, if I wanted to, I could right now listen to Japanese folk music, right? Without making the effort of going to some guy who's in Japan, finding his village, finding his house, sitting with him, listening to him, right? So now I feel like people, when they're now that they're listening to all these different things, and their access has opened up. Now we have worldwide access thanks to this. That they are experiencing more, hence they are experimenting, a favorite word, with it more, and hence things are coming out again. There's, I mean, what genre, who knows, but like things are coming out because they like the sound of the Indian the Indian rhythm on the tabla, but while I'm doing like classical European classical guitar stuff, right? What is that? But like, it sounds great.
Have you seen a specific boom of different styles coming out? Because
I
you've been born
yeah.
before us, you've seen pre-internet world.
No, I don't know enough about music to answer that question. I'll tell you, why I'm reluctant is that I also know that village to village, the way a sarangi is played differs, and so that alters the style. The way the same story is told differs. Um, Even though the story might be common, that let's say the Mughals came and conquered us and set up these two forts over here, and that's the story. But the way that story is told is, it differs. The other thing is that it's a little like the world of medicine saying that there's a lot more cases of an ailment. Let's just take influenza, a harmless one, relatively, right? A lot more cases of influenza this year than there were in the last 20 years. Now, my point is that the case, or is it that you're just learning about them? Uh, Japanese folk music existed a long time before the internet did, as did those Japanese villages where the music changed village to village, and so I honestly I don't know enough about it to I don't know if new styles are being born. I know that at least here I do see a bit of a um, I would say maybe an erosion of, if not, it's not, I don't want to say erosion also, actually it's um, yeah, it's just I think that there's to some extent there's a dumbing down of a lot of music, and that's a little unfortunate. um, yeah.
I would rephrase that in a way that most of the music now is pop.
Whatever rocks your boat, man.
Yeah. But I would, Quinn, I would ask a question. So, like, we're talking about styles being influenced by cultural integration, right? So, do you guys think that, like, if the Africans were ever taken to America, what would have happened to music? Because technically, when you think about it, that's where most of our current genres started out from, like the most popular ones, right? Like rock and stuff, right? Something to think about, I guess. Anyway, I have to leave, so
You wanted to say something with
I can keep going on.
that? You can say last something and we can wrap up.
Well, yeah, but
I mean, eventually, right? You would have come. Somebody would have been like, "You include this in our
It
stuff."
would have not been blues then.
Yeah, but then one also wonders as to whether that had more of an influence on music, or did the invention of the gramophone,
Yeah.
you know, and then the recording studio. So
Great. Thanks a lot, both of you, for sitting with me again. Thanks, Amy, and thanks, Ira, again, for helping.
there's
with
another
this.
thing that's I think a really big influence. Sorry, in
Go
the
ahead.
provision of music, just a separate thing. We can talk about this. Is China, man. The thing is that because China has existed and they've taken over manufacturing, right? What they've done is that they've made instruments accessible to people, at an affordable price. And earlier, that wasn't the case. And so, for better or for worse, you've got a lot more people being able to buy instruments and therefore learn them and play them.
Accessibility.
Yeah. And then do Gangnam Style. That guy's Korean, isn't he?
Yeah.